Your smallest daily habits are carving the statue of your future self. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what stands in the way becomes the way, and this is the secret of a quiet revolution. Each ordinary day presents a choice to react to the world or to build an inner citadel through deliberate ritual. By the end of this, you will possess a complete framework for turning daily life into a training ground for unshakable character. We will uncover how ancient Stoic practices, from the morning review to the evening examination, can make you unrecognizably resilient and calm. What are your current routines quietly building for you, a fortress or a cage? What do the first 10 minutes of your morning typically look like? For many, it is a frantic scramble, a rush of notifications and immediate demands. But in Stoic philosophy, this is the most critical time to build your inner fortress. They called this practice the Premeditatio Malorum, which simply means the premeditation of troubles. It is not about pessimism, but about preparation. By mentally rehearsing the potential challenges of your day, you strip them of their power to shock and disrupt you. Seneca advised that we should say to ourselves each morning, "You will meet all sorts of unpleasant and difficult people today." He was not being negative, he was vaccinating his mind against frustration. Think of it like a fire drill. You do not practice because you expect a fire, but so that if one ever happens, your response is calm, automatic, and effective. Your morning ritual can be just that. Take just 5 minutes in silence, visualize a specific challenge you might face, perhaps a difficult conversation, a looming deadline, or a moment of boredom that tempts you toward distraction. Now see yourself in that moment, not reacting with anger or anxiety, but responding with calm purpose. What is one challenge you can foresee today? How could you prepare your mindset to meet it not as a crisis, but as a training exercise for your character? That nightly scroll through your phone is a missed opportunity for profound transformation. While the morning prepares you for the day ahead, the evening secures its lessons. The Stoics perfected a ritual for this, a practice of honest self-audit they called the evening examination. This is not about guilt or self-criticism. It is about closing the day with clarity, not just exhaustion. Epictetus, a former slave who became a great teacher, put it plainly. He said, "Do not let the fleeting force of an impression sweep you away." Instead, he urged, say to the impression, "Wait for me a little. Let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me test you." The evening examination is that waiting period. It is where you test the impressions your day left on you. The practice is beautifully simple. You take a few quiet minutes, perhaps with a notebook, and ask yourself 3 straightforward questions. First, where did my actions align with my character today? What did I do well? Maybe you practiced patience in a frustrating line, or chose a healthy meal over a convenient one. Acknowledge that small victory. Second, where did I fall short? Not in a dramatic sense, but where did I react impulsively instead of responding wisely? Perhaps you snapped at a loved one or wasted an hour on meaningless scrolling. Look at this not as a failure, but as a specific point for tomorrow's training. And third, what happened today that was ultimately outside of my control? The traffic, the rude comment from a stranger, the sudden change of plans. This final question is your act of mentally returning these things to the universe, lightening the burden you carry into your sleep. Your journal does not need to be long or poetic. It can be 3 bullet points. 1, a success. 2, a lesson. 3, a release. Tonight, before you sleep, take just 5 minutes. Write down one honest thing you learned about yourself today. It might feel small, but this daily act of excavation is how you build self-awareness that becomes unshakable resilience. That last time you checked for likes or felt a sting from a casual critique, what were you truly seeking? We often hand over our inner peace to the opinions of others, letting their praise lift us and their blame shatter our day. The Stoics offered a radical solution to this emotional roller coaster. They classified things like praise and criticism as indifference. This does not mean they are unimportant, but that they have no true power to make us good or bad people. Our virtue, our character, is the only real good, and it is something that exists entirely within our own control. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings. He wrote, "Remember that the attention you crave comes from people who have their own inner storms and doubts. Do not be surprised," he said. "You will be torn apart if you expect the world to always confirm your worth." Your self-respect must be a fortress built on your own actions, not on the applause from outside the walls. Imagine you work diligently on a project and share it, only to receive harsh, unexpected criticism. The initial sting is natural, but a Stoic would pause and apply a simple filter. They would ask, is this criticism within my control? The other person's opinion is not. My emotional reaction, however, is. They would then ask, is there any truth in this that can help me improve? If yes, accept that kernel without accepting the accompanying negativity. If not, recognize it as mere noise, an external event that says nothing about your core character. The goal is not to become numb, but to become selective, to build an inner compass so strong that the magnetic pull of external validation loses its power. Think back to a recent moment when criticism truly bothered you. Can you separate the actual event from the story you told yourself about it? What if that hurt was not a verdict on your worth, but simply data, some of it useful, most of it not? This quiet shift in perspective is how you stop being a puppet on the strings of other people's opinions. When was the last time you deliberately chose to be a little bit uncomfortable? Most of us spend our lives building cushions against hardship, yet the Stoics proposed a counterintuitive path. They called it voluntary discomfort, a deliberate practice of seeking out minor hardships to fortify the mind and appreciate what you have. The philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that just as physical exercise strengthens the body, practicing discomfort strengthens the soul. He argued that by occasionally going without, we prove to ourselves that our peace does not depend on perfect conditions. We reduce our frantic attachment to comfort and build a deep, unshakable confidence that we can handle life's inevitable bumps. Seneca put it powerfully when he wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest food, saying to yourself, is this the condition I once feared?" This is not about self-punishment. It is a training exercise in gratitude and resilience. The goal is to experience a small lack so that you can truly feel the abundance that was already there. The applications are simple and woven into ordinary life. You could choose to take a cold shower for the final minute, not because you enjoy it, but to practice commanding your body's initial protest. You might decide to skip a meal, not for dieting, but to remind yourself that you can function perfectly well with a little hunger, that your will is stronger than your cravings. You could walk a longer route in the cold or sit on the floor instead of the couch for an evening. Each small act is a message to your deepest self, a quiet declaration that you are not fragile, that your comfort is not your master. This week, what is one small, voluntary discomfort you can incorporate into your routine? It does not need to be grand or painful, just a conscious choice to step outside the warm bubble of constant ease. That single choice is a quiet revolution against a world that tells you to always seek the path of least resistance. Your heart pounds after that angry email, and your fingers fly across the keyboard with a sharp reply. We have all felt that surge, the immediate impulse to react that often leaves us with regret. This space between the event and your action is where Stoic virtue is truly forged, in the disciplined practice of withholding your assent. The Stoics taught that our initial, raw impressions are not facts. They are merely suggestions, and we possess the power to accept or reject them. Epictetus offered a simple but life-changing command. He said, "Do not be carried away by the vividness of your first impression, but instead say to it, 'Wait, let me see who you are and what you represent.'" That moment of waiting is your greatest power. It is the gap where you reclaim your freedom from being a puppet of circumstance. Imagine a common trigger, like a rude comment from a colleague. Your initial impression screams, "That was disrespectful. I am angry. I must defend myself." The undisciplined mind immediately assents to this story and lashes out. But with training, you insert a pause. You take one breath, maybe two. In that brief space, you interrogate the impression. Is this comment truly an injury to my character, or is it just noise from someone having a bad day? Is my angry story the only possible interpretation? By withholding your immediate agreement, you create room for a dozen better responses. From a calm question to silent understanding, you move from being reactive to being responsive. What is one recurring situation in your own life where your temper or your pride flares up on command? It might be a certain topic of conversation, a particular tone of voice from a family member, or the relentless ping of a notification. For the next week, make that single moment your training ground. When you feel that familiar heat rise, your only job is to pause. Do not act, just breathe and question the impression. This tiny, deliberate hesitation is the quiet revolution that rebuilds your entire relationship with the world. That sharp sting of a personal insult or the heavy weight of a work deadline can feel all-consuming in the moment. The Stoics developed a powerful mental exercise to dissolve this illusion, a practice known as viewing from above. It is a conscious shift in perspective, pulling your awareness back from the immediate drama to see your life from a cosmic vantage point. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. In the midst of leading an empire with armies and senators demanding his attention, he would write reminders to himself. He said, "Look at the grand sweep of time and see the brief little space that is allotted to you." He would reflect on how many people have lived and died, each convinced their own dramas were the center of the universe, and now they are all forgotten dust. This is not meant to make your life seem meaningless, but to make your troubles seem manageable. Your stressful meeting, that social slight, this entire bustling city, is just a tiny, fleeting speck on a small planet in an unimaginably vast cosmos. The goal is to shrink your problems down to their true size. Here is how you can practice this today. Think of a specific worry that is currently occupying your mind. Maybe it is a conflict with a coworker or anxiety over a financial decision. Now, close your eyes for a moment and perform a simple thought experiment. Imagine you are floating up high above your street, then your city, seeing it as a grid of tiny lights. Keep pulling back until you see the whole continent, then the blue marble of the earth itself, hanging in the immense black silence of space. From here, can you even see that problem? Can you pinpoint the meeting room or the bank account? From this cosmic distance, your entire life is a brief, flickering instant. The intensity of the feeling begins to soften, not because the issue is gone, but because you have placed it in its proper context. Take out a piece of paper and write down your current worry in one sentence. Then, beneath it, write a second sentence describing that same worry as if you were a historian writing 1,000 years from now, or an observer from another star. This act of reframing is a quiet revolution against the tyranny of the immediate, a daily ritual to reclaim your inner peace. we instinctively brace against the unexpected, fighting every deviation from our carefully laid plans. But there is a far more powerful stance, a quiet revolution of the spirit the Stoics called Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. This is not passive resignation, but the active, wholehearted embrace of everything that happens, the pleasant and the painful, as if you had chosen it yourself. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, later captured its essence perfectly when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." The Stoics believed that to rail against reality is to argue with a force far greater than yourself, a guaranteed path to misery. Instead, they proposed loving fate itself because every event, especially the difficult ones, is raw material for building your virtue and strength. Consider the story of an ordinary woman named Clara. She had built a comfortable career over 2 decades, only to see her entire industry vanish almost overnight. The initial shock and fear were overwhelming. She could have spent years in bitterness, lamenting the unfairness of it all, but she remembered the Stoic principle, the obstacle is the way. She began to treat her sudden unemployment not as a disaster, but as a forced opportunity, a fate she would learn to love. This shift did not happen overnight. She started small, accepting the situation without internal complaint. This acceptance freed up the mental energy she had been spending on resistance, and she poured it into learning a new skill she had always been curious about. That major setback, which felt like an ending, became the necessary catalyst for a career she found far more meaningful. Her love of fate was not about enjoying the loss, but about embracing the strength and new direction it made possible. Look back on your own life for a moment. Is there a past difficulty, a rejection, or a failure that you now see was essential? Perhaps a broken heart that led you to a period of profound self-discovery, or a professional disappointment that steered you toward a better path. That challenging event was not an interruption of your life. It was the very thing that carved the person you are becoming. To love your fate is to see the hidden hand of providence in every twist of the road. The human mind is a factory of wants, constantly manufacturing new desires that obscure the abundance already present. Stoic philosophy treats gratitude not as a fleeting feeling, but as a disciplined practice to dismantle this machinery of lack. It is the active, daily decision to focus on what is sufficient, thereby starving the endless hunger for more. Seneca offered a piercing insight into this practice. He wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, to be content with what we have, for that is all we need." This contentment is not complacency. It is a profound recognition that your peace cannot be found in the next purchase, promotion, or compliment, but only in the full acceptance of the present moment. To complain is to focus on the one thing you lack, while gratitude illuminates the 1,000 things you already possess. The practice is disarmingly simple, yet its effects are a quiet revolution in your perception. Each night before you close your eyes, take a notebook and write down 3 specific things for which you are grateful. The key is in the specificity. Do not just write family, write the sound of my child's laughter this afternoon. Do not just write health, write the feeling of my legs carrying me up the stairs today. This ritual forces your attention to the texture of your life, to the small, overlooked miracles that form its foundation. A warm cup of coffee, the reliable heat from a radiator, the fact that a stranger held a door open for you. This nightly audit does not deny life's difficulties. It simply builds a foundation of seen goodness so solid that the difficulties cannot completely overwhelm you. Your challenge tonight is to find one overlooked blessing, something so ordinary you normally take it for granted. It could be the clean water from your tap or the simple fact that you woke up this morning with a new day ahead of you. In that single act of recognition, you are not just saying thank you. You are building an inner citadel of contentment, brick by grateful brick. The final quiet revolution is the one that begins with a single, sobering truth. Every life, no matter how grand or quiet, has an expiration date. The Stoics did not shy away from this reality. They turned it into their most powerful tool for living, a practice they called Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that simply means remember you must die. This is not a morbid fixation on the end, but a profound strategy to clarify your values and ignite a life of purpose. Seneca captured this perfectly in a letter to a friend. He wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. We fear loss and hardship as if our time is short, yet we procrastinate on our deepest ambitions as if we have all the time in the world." Memento Mori is the corrective to this illusion. It is the daily whisper that reminds you your time is a non-renewable resource, compelling you to spend it on what truly matters. Think of the trivial worries that consumed your thoughts this past week, the social slight you replayed in your mind, the complaint about a minor inconvenience, the hour lost to mindless scrolling. Now imagine viewing those same moments through the lens of your own mortality. From that perspective, their weight vanishes, exposed as the distractions they are. The Stoics would often keep a physical reminder of this truth. It could be a ring, a carved stone, or even the image of a skull placed on their desk. This object was not a symbol of despair, but a focal point. Before beginning a task or entering a conversation, they would glance at it and ask, "Is this worthy of my limited and precious time?" This simple act cuts through the noise of false urgency and societal pressure, directing your energy toward virtuous action and genuine connection. If you knew for certain that you had just 1 year left to live, what would you immediately stop doing? What conversation would you finally have? What project would you start? And who would you make sure to thank? Your honest answers are not a blueprint for a final year, but a mirror reflecting the life you should be building right now. This daily remembrance of your end is the quiet revolution that makes every single day count. What is the one thing you believe you need to be happy? A promotion, a new car, a different relationship? The Stoics identified this relentless pursuit as the primary source of our anxiety, and they prescribed a radical cure, the discipline of desire. This is the practice of training your wants to align only with what is truly good for your character and entirely within your power to achieve. It is about wanting things to happen not as you wish, but exactly as they do happen. Epictetus, who began his life in slavery, understood this power better than anyone. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will go on well." This sounds almost backwards at first. Wish for the traffic jam, wish for the rejection, but look closer. He is not asking you to enjoy the traffic jam. He is asking you to wish for reality, because fighting against what is already true is a war you can never win. Your peace comes from aligning your desires with the unchangeable facts of the present moment. Your desires are not your enemy, but their targets often are. The Stoics divided desires into two simple categories. There are natural desires which are in accord with our nature, like the need for nourishment, shelter, and human connection. And there are unnatural desires which are vain and empty, like the craving for endless wealth, constant praise, or power over others. The first category leads to contentment, the second to a bottomless pit of discontent. A quiet revolution happens when you learn to redirect your energy from the second category back to the first. Imagine you have a strong desire for a new, expensive phone. The advertisement promises it will make your life smoother, more impressive, more complete. The discipline of desire asks you to pause and interrogate that want. Is this new phone within my control to obtain? Perhaps if you have the money, but is it virtuous? Will it truly make me a better, wiser, more just person? Almost certainly not. Is it in accordance with nature? My current phone functions perfectly well for communication and work, so this desire is for a luxury, not a necessity. By examining the desire this way, you expose it as an empty promise. You see that your underlying want is not for the object itself, but for the feeling you believe it will provide, a feeling of status or peace that no object can ever truly deliver. That feeling can only be built from within through the steady practice of virtue. So take one of your own current desires and hold it up to this clear, stoic light. It might be for a particular outcome at work, for a vacation, or for someone to treat you differently. Ask yourself honestly, is the object of this desire entirely within my control? If not, what would it feel like to gently release my demand for it and instead wish for reality to unfold exactly as it will, trusting in your own capacity to meet it with character? This is not giving up. It is the ultimate empowerment, shifting your focus from trying to control the world to mastering the one thing you truly can, your own wants. Integrity is the measure of your character when the audience has gone home. The Stoics called this the discipline of action, a commitment to act for the common good and with the right intention, regardless of whether anyone sees it or if it ever bears fruit. Your focus shifts from the unpredictable outcome to the purity of your own effort. Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled this into his own mind during his reign. He wrote, "In the morning when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be present: I am rising to the work of a human being. Why then am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist and for which I was brought into the world?" Your purpose is not to achieve a specific result, but to perform your role with justice, kindness, and integrity. The world may not reward your effort, but your virtue is its own reward, a prize that cannot be taken from you. Think of a simple, mundane chore like washing the dishes. One person might rush through it with resentment, their mind already on the next distraction, leaving behind a film of grease and a sense of incompletion. Another person approaches the same task as an opportunity for practice. They feel the warmth of the water, focus on scrubbing each plate thoroughly, and take satisfaction in leaving the kitchen a little more orderly than they found it. The external outcome, a clean sink, is the same, but the internal action, the intention, and the quality of attention is entirely different. The first action depletes them, while the second is a small but real exercise in virtue. This discipline transforms every moment into a chance to build your character. It applies to how you write an email, how you listen to a friend, how you complete a report that may never be read. The goal is to act rightly for its own sake, because that is what a good human does. Can you recall one small action you took yesterday, perhaps holding a door or completing a task? What was the true intention behind it? Was it for recognition, or was it simply because it was the right thing to do? This quiet honesty with yourself is where the discipline of action truly begins. That deadline at work, that critical comment online, the nagging worry about your health, our minds are constantly buzzing with anxieties. But how many of these sources of stress are truly within your power to change? The single most clarifying tool in Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control, a simple division that cuts through the noise of life. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, whose words were recorded in a small manual called the Enchiridion, began his entire teaching with this very idea. He stated that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Up to us are our judgments, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions. Everything else, from our reputation to our wealth to our health, is not entirely within our command. This is not a suggestion, but a fundamental law of human existence. Peace is found by focusing your energy exclusively on the first category and releasing your grip on the second. Think about a job interview you might be nervous about. You cannot control whether the other candidates are more qualified. You cannot control the mood of the interviewer or the final decision they make. These are external events outside the walls of your inner citadel. What is entirely within your control, however, is your preparation. You can research the company thoroughly. You can practice answering questions with clarity and honesty. You can choose to show up on time, dressed appropriately, with a mindset of calm focus rather than desperate need. You can control the quality of your effort, but not the outcome. The moment you shift your goal from getting the job to performing excellently in the interview, you reclaim your power. You replace anxiety with purpose. Take a moment and bring to mind one current anxiety. Now, find a piece of paper and draw a line down the center. On the left, write down every element of that situation that is within your control. Your preparation, your attitude, your actions in this very moment. On the right, list everything that is not other people's opinions, final results, past events, future uncertainties. Look at that right-hand column. These are the things you have been trying to command, the waves you have been shouting at to be still. What would it feel like to consciously, deliberately, release your demand that they be different? This act of sorting is not passive surrender. It is the quiet revolution of directing your precious energy where it can actually build something, starting with your own peace. You send that angry email and instantly feel a cold wave of regret. The cost of that emotional surge is a fractured relationship and a day poisoned by resentment. The Stoics named this desired state Apatheia, a profound freedom from the turbulent passions that hijack our reason. This is not the cold emptiness of apathy, but a clear-minded equanimity. It is the difference between a storm-tossed sea and a deep, still lake. Seneca dedicated an entire letter to the subject of anger, describing it as a temporary madness. He wrote that no plague has cost the human race more, that anger is a brief insanity, for it is devoid of self-control. His remedy was not to suppress the feeling, but to intercept it with conscious reason before it could dictate our actions. The goal is to feel the initial spark of anger without pouring fuel on it, to acknowledge fear without letting it paralyze you. When you feel that familiar heat rise in your chest, your first Stoic practice is to impose a mandatory pause. Do not speak, do not act, simply breathe for a count of 5. In that small space, challenge the story your emotion is telling you. Ask, is this situation truly an injustice, or am I interpreting it that way? Is my reaction proportionate, or is it an overreaction based on a wounded ego? Then, consciously reframe the event. If someone cuts you off in traffic, the passionate response is to see a personal insult. The Stoic response is to see a distracted or hurried driver, a neutral event that requires only a calm adjustment on your part. This is not about becoming emotionless, but about ensuring your emotions are your informed advisors, not your tyrannical rulers. What is the one passion that most frequently disturbs your peace? Is it a flash of envy when a colleague succeeds, or a simmering anxiety about a future you cannot control? Name it, then, right now, draft a simple plan for the next time it appears. Your plan could be as simple as, when I feel that envy, I will pause and write down one thing I am grateful for in my own career. When the anxiety hits, I will ask myself what small, constructive action is within my control at this very moment. This is how you cultivate apatheia, not by fighting your feelings, but by choosing your response to them with unwavering clarity. So much of modern life feels like a struggle against the current, but what if your deepest peace was found by finally swimming with it? The Stoics called this living according to nature, and it is perhaps their most profound and misunderstood ideal. This is not about retreating to a cabin in the woods. It is about aligning your individual reason with the grand, rational order of the universe itself. Your mind is not a separate entity fighting against an indifferent world. It is a fragment of the universal mind, a spark of the same cosmic fire that orders the stars and the seasons. To live according to nature, then, is to live in harmony with this profound intelligence, using your own gift of reason to discern your unique role within the whole. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, defined the goal of life simply as living in agreement with nature. He meant a life where your actions are consistently guided by virtue and a clear understanding of the world as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. This is the ultimate quiet revolution, a shift from seeing yourself as the center of the universe to understanding yourself as a cooperative part of it. How does this grand philosophy translate to your ordinary Tuesday? Every time you make an ethical choice, you are living according to nature. When you choose honesty over a convenient lie, you are aligning with the universal principle of truth. When you act with justice in a situation where you could easily be unfair, you are mirroring the cosmic order with your own will. It appears when you use reason to navigate a personal conflict instead of being swept away by emotion. Pausing to ask what is the most rational and constructive response here is an act of cosmic alignment. It is the decision to listen carefully to a dissenting opinion, recognizing that other rational perspectives are also part of the whole. It is the choice to eat food that nourishes your body, a body that is part of the natural world, rather than polluting it with substances that cloud your reason. This principle turns every decision, no matter how small, into a vote for harmony or discord. Where in your own life does a gap exist between your actions and your reasoned principles? Perhaps it is in a relationship where you react with old patterns of defensiveness instead of calm understanding, or in your work where you chase external validation rather than the intrinsic quality of the effort itself. Identify one single area, then for just 1 week, make it your practice to ask before you act, is this choice in agreement with my best, most rational self? Is it in harmony with the person I wish to become? This daily calibration is how you stop fighting the current and begin to flow with the profound intelligence of your own nature. Advertising screams that happiness is a newer car or a fuller closet, but Stoic philosophy whispers a different truth. The secret to contentment is not in having more, but in wanting less. This is the art of finding sufficiency, where freedom is measured by the number of things you can live happily without. Society equates accumulation with success, yet the Stoics saw it as a chain that binds you to fortune's whims. Musonius Rufus taught that the person who needs the least is the richest because their peace does not depend on fragile external goods. He argued that a simple life is not a life of deprivation, but one of profound autonomy. When you untangle your happiness from possessions and status, you build an inner citadel that no market crash or social trend can ever breach. Seneca echoed this, writing that a man is not poor because he has little, but because he craves more. This craving is the real poverty, a state of perpetual want that no amount of wealth can cure. The practice is about shifting your focus from what you lack to the deep appreciation of what is already sufficient. A practical way to start is with a weekly simplicity exercise. Choose one day each week as a no-spend day. This is not about being frugal, but about being mindful. For 24 hours, you buy nothing except absolute necessities like food or medicine. You pack a lunch instead of buying one. You drink coffee you make at home. You find entertainment in a walk or a book already on your shelf. This single day breaks the automatic cycle of consumption and reminds you how much you already have. Another powerful ritual is to declutter a single small space, perhaps a single drawer or a shelf. As you handle each object, ask a Stoic question. Does this item serve a purpose for a virtuous life, or does it merely serve my vanity or my fear of lack? If it is the latter, let it go. This physical act of release is a direct practice in the detachment Seneca praised, so look around your own living space right now. What is one possession you could give away today, not because it is worthless, but precisely because it has value? Giving away something you still find useful is the quiet revolution that proves your peace is not stored in your belongings. History remembers Ludwig van Beethoven for his symphonies, but his greatest composition was the character he forged in silence. As his hearing faded, a catastrophe for any musician, he wrote in a letter to his brothers that he would seize fate by the throat. It will not wholly conquer me. His deafness, the ultimate obstacle for a composer, became the very pressure that created his most revolutionary later works. He could no longer hear the orchestra, so he was forced to hear the music entirely in his mind, purer and more powerful than ever before. This is the living essence of the Stoic maxim: the obstacle is the way. An impediment to action, they taught, advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius framed this transformation in elemental terms. He wrote, "The blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. A strong man," he said, "is made by a difficult struggle, just as gold is brightened by the fire." Your obstacles are not barriers on your path, they are the path itself. They are the fire that tempers your spirit and reveals your true strength. How can you begin this alchemy in your own life? Start by mentally reframing a single, current frustration, perhaps a difficult project at work that feels overwhelming. Instead of seeing it as a stressful demand, label it your patience training. Every moment of confusion is a repetition, strengthening your ability to endure and persist. Or maybe it is a financial constraint. See this not as a limitation, but as your creativity drill. It forces you to find new solutions, to appreciate non-monetary wealth, and to build resilience against life's unpredictability. The obstacle itself provides the exact training your character needs most. Think of one specific challenge you are facing right now. It could be a strained relationship, a health concern, or a professional rejection. Now, take a moment and list 3 ways this very situation could be secretly serving your growth. First, it might be teaching you a specific virtue like patience, courage, or humility. Second, it could be burning away a false dependency, showing you that your peace cannot rely on this particular circumstance. And third, it might be redirecting you toward a better path, one you would never have chosen voluntarily. Your obstacle is not your enemy. It is the raw material for a version of yourself you cannot yet recognize. We often create villains out of people who simply have a different story than our own. That driver who cut you off becomes an inconsiderate monster, and the coworker with a sharp email becomes a personal antagonist. The Stoics proposed a radical antidote to this automatic judgment, a deep practice of empathy rooted in the concept of our common humanity. They believed that no one willingly chooses error. When people act unjustly or foolishly, it is not from a desire to be evil, but from a kind of ignorance, a mistaken belief about what is truly good for them. Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with scheming senators and difficult generals daily, constantly reminded himself to see their humanity first. He wrote in his private journal, "When people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it." If you understand that, you will feel sympathy rather than outrage or anger, for they are clinging to what seems good from their limited perspective, just as you are from yours. Your quiet revolution begins when you stop seeing others as obstacles and start seeing them as fellow travelers, all stumbling through the same human experience. A powerful mental exercise to cultivate this is to deliberately reconstruct the inner world of someone you find difficult. The next time you feel frustration rising toward a person, pause and consciously build a story for them in your mind. Perhaps that irritable cashier is not lazy, but is standing on her feet for the 8th straight hour, worried about a sick child at home. The colleague who dismissed your idea might be operating under immense pressure from his own boss, his mind clouded by a fear of failure you know nothing about. You do not need to know their actual story. The practice is in the act of generous imagination, in granting them the same complex inner life you know you possess. This does not mean you condone bad behavior. It means you stop letting their behavior poison your own mind with resentment. You respond to the action, not from a place of personal offense, but from a place of understanding the universal human condition. Who is one person in your life right now who consistently triggers your judgment? It could be a relative with opposing political views or a neighbor with annoying habits. For just one day, make that person the subject of your empathy practice. Before you interact with them or think about them, mentally wish for them to be free from their own suffering and confusion. See if this subtle shift in your own intention changes the texture of the encounter, or at the very least, changes the storm inside of you. How many hours did you spend today scrolling through news feeds or absorbing media? That constant stream of information is not neutral. Every headline, every opinion, every fragment of digital drama is an impression vying for your assent. And the Stoic practice of guarding your mind begins with what you allow through the gates. Seneca saw this danger clearly, advising that we must be careful about what we permit to enter our minds, for it will shape our thoughts. He compared the mind to a fortress, and just as a wise commander does not let just anyone inside the walls, you must not let every piece of information take root in your consciousness. This is not about ignoring the world, but about applying fierce discernment. It is the discipline of assent applied to the modern deluge of data. Before you click on that link or dive into that comment section, pause for a single moment. Ask a simple Stoic filter: is this information useful for my virtue? Does it help me become more just, courageous, or wise? If the answer is no, you have just identified mental pollution. The goal is to move from passive consumption to active curation. A powerful ritual is to declare one day each week a low information day. On this day, you make a conscious choice to avoid news websites and social media platforms. You do not check notifications first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Instead, you fill that space with a chapter from a meaningful book, a long walk without headphones, or a deliberate conversation. This is not an act of ignorance, but one of profound focus on the impressions that truly build your character. Your challenge is to eliminate one source of information that you know leaves you feeling anxious, angry, or simply empty. It might be a certain news channel, a social media account you follow out of habit, or even the habit of checking your phone during meals. For 1 week, consciously withdraw your attention from that single source. Notice what grows in the quiet space it leaves behind. That newfound mental clarity is the first brick in a stronger, more resilient inner citadel. The constant hum of modern life is a current that pulls you away from your own center. We fill every spare second with a podcast, a notification, or another demand, fearing the quiet as if it were emptiness. Yet the Stoics understood this silence not as a void, but as the fertile ground where inner strength is cultivated. They practiced deliberate solitude, stepping away from the crowd's noise to strengthen their resolve far from the pull of external opinions. Seneca wrote powerfully about this need to retreat into oneself. He observed, "You must retreat into yourself as often as you can, for you gain access to a vast and infinite territory by mixing with the crowd only confuses the soul." He was not advocating for a hermit's life, but for regular moments of withdrawal to remember who you are when no one is watching. This is where you audit your thoughts away from the world's chatter and solidify the principles you wish to live by. A practical way to begin is to claim just 10 minutes each day for complete, undistracted silence. Find a quiet corner, leave your phone in another room, and simply sit. You might focus on your breath or just observe the thoughts that drift through your mind without latching onto them. The goal is not to achieve a blank mind, but to become the calm observer of your own mental weather. In that quiet, you are not doing nothing. You are performing the essential maintenance on your inner citadel, strengthening its walls against the daily siege of demands and distractions. What thoughts arise when you stop running from them? Is it anxiety about tomorrow or a quiet regret from yesterday? Simply notice these visitors without judgment. This daily appointment with silence is your rebellion against the noise. Schedule just 10 minutes for solitude tomorrow, perhaps first thing in the morning or right before bed, and observe what you discover in the quiet. Your character echoes most clearly when you think no one is listening. It is in the smallest, most forgettable moments that the foundation of a truly resilient spirit is laid, not in the rare, dramatic test of principle. The Stoics insisted that philosophy is not just for the lecture hall but for the marketplace, for the way you handle a simple mistake at a coffee shop, or the choice to work diligently on a task your boss will never see. This is the quiet labor of building moral muscle through daily repetition, where integrity becomes not an act but a habit. Epictetus, who focused relentlessly on the practical application of wisdom, challenged his students with a piercing question. He asked, if you try to be a philosopher only when you are in class, and then revert to your old ways in daily life, what have you truly learned? He compared it to someone who reads about how to build a strong body but never actually lifts a weight. The reading does not create the muscle, only the consistent, effortful practice does. Your commitment to truthfulness in a trivial conversation is a repetition for your character, strengthening your capacity for honesty when the stakes are high. Consider a simple, modern scenario. You are at a self-checkout kiosk and you scan a bag of expensive coffee. The machine registers it as a much cheaper store-brand item. No one is watching. The store will never know. The easy, impulsive thought is to stay silent, to take the small win. But the person practicing Stoic integrity pauses. They see this not as a financial decision, but as a training exercise. They call over the attendant and clarify the error, paying the correct amount. The external cost is a few dollars. The internal reward is the reinforcement of their own self-respect, the proof that their honesty is not for sale at any price. This is how you build an inner citadel that cannot be breached by temptation, one small, honest choice at a time. Think back over the last 24 hours. Can you recall one seemingly insignificant action where you had a choice between cutting a corner and upholding your values? Perhaps it was resisting the urge to gossip, or admitting your own small error in a meeting when you could have remained silent. That minor victory, almost invisible to the outside world, was a critical brick in the structure of your character. Acknowledge it, for in that quiet consistency, your future, unrecognizably resilient self is being forged. The red brake lights stretch ahead of you in an endless, unmoving river, and your grip tightens on the steering wheel. That familiar heat of frustration begins to rise in your chest, a silent scream against the stolen time. This is the modern arena for a quiet revolution in patience. In Stoic philosophy, patience is not passive waiting. It is an active, muscular virtue, a form of courage that accepts the present moment exactly as it is, without demanding it be faster or more convenient. It is the endurance to persist calmly when your plans are thwarted, recognizing that the delay itself is part of the universal order. Marcus Aurelius, constantly navigating the delays of governance and war, counseled himself to meet obstacles with a quiet mind. He wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." He was not suggesting apathy, but a profound acceptance that frees your energy from fighting reality and redirects it toward a constructive response. You can transform your next encounter with a maddening delay by reframing the waiting time as an unexpected gift. Instead of fuming in a long queue, use it as a minute of observation. Notice the details around you, the patterns on the floor, the sounds of the environment without judgment, or turn it into a moment of reflection. Mentally review your morning, asking the Stoic evening question a few hours early. Where has my action aligned with my character today? This shifts the experience from one of powerless frustration to one of purposeful engagement. What is one recurring situation in your own life that consistently tests your patience? It might be your daily commute, a slow-loading computer, or a family member who is always late. For the next week, make that specific trigger your designated training ground. Before you enter the situation, decide on your Stoic response. It could be a single deep breath, a mantra like "this is my endurance practice," or the conscious decision to observe your own impatience without acting on it. This is how a daily irritation becomes the very thing that forges your calm. That cherished person you love most, what if they were gone tomorrow? The Stoics proposed a startling exercise to answer that very question, not to invite sorrow, but to unlock a profound appreciation for the present moment. This is the practice of negative visualization, a deliberate contemplation of loss to inoculate the soul against fear and amplify gratitude. While it may sound counterintuitive, this mental rehearsal is one of the most powerful tools for building lasting contentment. You consciously imagine losing the people, possessions, or circumstances you hold dear, not because you want them to be lost, but to viscerally understand their true value while you still have them. Seneca perfectly captured the spirit of this practice when he advised us to remind ourselves that we must lose everything eventually, and that we should love all we hold dear, understanding that we are merely borrowing it. He suggested we periodically tell ourselves, "Enjoy the company of those you love, for they are not yours to keep forever." This is not pessimism. It is the ultimate realism that makes every shared laugh and every quiet moment together shine with a priceless light. You can integrate this into your own life with a simple weekly ritual. Set aside just 5 minutes, perhaps on a Sunday evening. Choose one thing you deeply value, something you truly cherish. It could be your partner, your health, your ability to see, or the security of your home. Now close your eyes and vividly imagine it has been taken from you. Picture the silence in your home without your partner's voice. Feel the frustration of a body that no longer functions as it does now. Sit with that feeling of absence, not to dwell in it, but to fully appreciate its opposite. Then open your eyes. Let the wave of relief and gratitude wash over you as you realize it is still here. It is still yours. This is not a morbid game. It is a spiritual exercise that transforms taking things for granted into a conscious act of cherishing. Try this today with just one thing you love. Notice how your perception of it softens and deepens, how the ordinary suddenly feels extraordinary. This quiet shift is how you build a fortress of gratitude that no future loss can ever completely destroy. I caught myself yesterday mentally labeling a stranger as rude for taking too long at the checkout. I later noticed the deep exhaustion in their eyes, the slight tremor in their hands, and I realized my story about them was entirely wrong. This automatic habit of judgment is a constant source of inner turmoil, and the Stoics offered a profound alternative. Their philosophy insists that the only thing truly within our control is our own character and our own judgments. To waste that precious energy on critiquing others is to hand over our peace for nothing. The actions of other people, their opinions, and their flaws all reside firmly in that category of things not up to us. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly drilled this into his own mind. In his private writings, he asked himself a piercing question. He wrote, "How ridiculous and how strange to be surprised at anything that happens in life." He was reminding himself that it is foolish to expect people not to have the flaws they have always had. To be angry at a dishonest person for lying is like being angry at a fig tree for producing figs. Their nature is to act according to their own reasoning, however mistaken it may be. Your power lies not in changing their nature, but in refining your own expectation and your response. A powerful daily practice to cultivate this is to become a detective of your own judgmental thoughts. For one day, make it your mission to simply notice each time you silently criticize someone. The person driving too slowly, the coworker who speaks too much in a meeting, the politician you disagree with. Do not try to stop the thought, just catch it in the act. Then perform a simple act of mental alchemy. Replace the judgment with a neutral observation or a generous hypothesis. That slow driver is not incompetent, they are simply being cautious. The talkative coworker is not arrogant, they are passionate and seeking connection. The political opponent is not evil, they are operating from a different set of information and life experiences. This is not about being naive, but about reclaiming your mental real estate from the drain of constant criticism. Your challenge today is to catch just one of these judgmental thoughts. When you do, pause and ask yourself, what insecurity or fear within me is this judgment actually pointing toward? Often, our harshest critiques of others are mere reflections of the parts of ourselves we have not yet made peace with. How often do you choose the path of least physical resistance? We live in a world engineered for comfort, where every craving can be satisfied with a tap and every minor discomfort soothed by a convenience. The Stoics proposed a different relationship with the body, not as a source of indulgence, but as the primary training ground for your will. They saw physical discipline as the inseparable partner to mental fortitude, a way to prove to yourself that your spirit is not a slave to your flesh. The philosopher Musonius Rufus taught this with stark clarity. He said that just as it is necessary to exercise the body to be physically strong, it is necessary to exercise the soul to be fine and noble. For him, training the body through endurance was fundamental philosophy, because a weak will often hides inside a body that has never been told no. This is not about punishment or achieving a certain physique. It is about the quiet ritual of reminding your body who is in charge. The practices were simple and woven into the fabric of an ordinary life. They engaged in moderate exercise not for vanity, but for vitality and the discipline of consistent effort. They ate simple, nourishing food, not to deprive themselves, but to avoid becoming distracted by the endless pursuit of culinary pleasure. They would deliberately endure the cold without an extra layer, or choose a harder seat, all to reinforce the liberating truth that they could be content with less. You can introduce this ritual today with a single, focused habit. Commit to a daily brisk walk, not while listening to a podcast or checking messages, but in complete silence. Feel the rhythm of your breath and the contact of your feet with the ground. Notice the initial protest in your mind, the desire for distraction or to cut the walk short, and simply observe it without obeying. Or practice mindful eating for one meal. Sit down with a simple meal and do nothing else. No screen, no book, no conversation. Just eat, paying attention to the flavors, textures, and the simple act of nourishment. In that space, you are not just eating, you are practicing the discipline of undivided attention. Your challenge is to select one physical comfort to consciously forego for a single day. It could be that second cup of coffee you rely on, the elevator you always take, or the warm, comfortable bed you linger in for 10 extra minutes. Choose one, and for 24 hours do without it. Do not fight the feeling of lack, but simply watch it. Observe the subtle shifts in your mind. Does a space of clarity open up where the craving once was? Do you feel a small, quiet sense of pride in your own self-command? This minor act of refusal is a quiet revolution, a direct message to your deepest self that you are building a will that can withstand far more than a little discomfort. Your phone buzzes with a notification while you are typing an email, and you glance at it, losing your train of thought for a precious second. This fractured attention is the default state for so many of us, a constant division of focus that drains our energy and dilutes the quality of everything we touch. We call it multitasking, but it is often just a series of rapid, shallow engagements that leave us feeling scattered and unfulfilled. The Stoics identified a profound antidote to this modern frenzy, a principle that grounds virtue in the immediacy of the now. They understood that the past is gone and the future is not guaranteed, leaving the present moment as the only real arena for your actions and your character. Your ability to be fully here, right now, is where your power truly lies. Epictetus offered a razor-sharp filter for this practice. He instructed his students to perform every single act in life as if it were the very last thing they were ever going to do. He wrote, "In everything you do, let the thought be present that this is perhaps your last deed." This is not a morbid fixation, but a powerful tool for concentration. If you believed this was the last email you would ever write, the last conversation you would ever have, or the last meal you would ever eat, how much more care and presence would you pour into it? The quality of your attention would become your final signature on the world. You can test this philosophy with a simple, daily experiment. For just 1 hour each day, declare yourself a single tasker. During this hour, you do one thing and one thing only. If you are washing the dishes, you are just washing the dishes. Feel the warmth of the water on your skin, notice the patterns of the soap bubbles, and take satisfaction in the clarity of a clean plate. If you are writing a report, you close every other tab on your computer. Your entire world shrinks to the words on the screen and the ideas you are forming. You will notice the initial resistance, the mental itch to check your phone or jump to another task. That itch is the very habit you are retraining. Observe it, but do not obey it. Your mission for tomorrow is to choose one routine task, something you normally do on autopilot. It could be drinking your morning coffee, walking to your car, or folding a basket of laundry. Perform that one task with your complete and undivided attention, as if its perfect execution were the most important thing in the world. Notice the texture of the fabric, the taste of the coffee, the feeling of your feet on the pavement. In that simple, focused hour, you are not just completing a chore, you are building a fortress of calm in the midst of the storm. When was the last time a single page of text rearranged your entire perspective? For the Stoics, philosophy was never meant to be locked away in libraries. It was a daily medicine for the soul, a practical tool to be taken in small, consistent doses to maintain mental health and clarity. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations as a book for publication, but as a private journal, a series of reminders to himself that he needed to read and reread every single day to stay aligned with his principles. This is the quiet power of the daily reading ritual. It is not about academic study, but about a daily realignment, a recalibration of your inner compass against the static of modern life. The goal is to make the wisdom of the Stoics so familiar that it becomes your own inner voice during moments of stress or decision. Start with a text that feels accessible, like a single passage from Meditations or one of Seneca's letters. These were written as personal correspondence, full of direct, actionable advice. The ritual itself is beautifully simple. Each morning, with your coffee or in a quiet moment, read just one page. Do not rush through a chapter. Let a single idea land. Then, in a notebook, write one sentence, not a summary, but a personal reflection. How does this idea apply to a challenge you might face today? For instance, if you read Marcus Aurelius reminding himself that the obstacle is the way, your one sentence might be, "My difficult meeting today is not a barrier, it is my training ground for patience." This act of reading and immediately connecting the wisdom to your own life transforms abstract philosophy into a living practice. It is the difference between reading about a map and actually using it to navigate your day. Your challenge is to select one Stoic text, whether a physical book or a digital copy, and commit to this 5-minute ritual for the next 7 days. Read one page and write one sentence. What single shift in your thinking might you discover by this time next week? Your quiet revolution does not require a single grand gesture, but the steady accumulation of these ordinary rituals. The profound change that makes you unrecognizable arrives not in a lightning bolt of inspiration, but in the patient practice of the dichotomy of control, in the daily choice to love your fate, and in the disciplines of desire and action. You are not trying to build a new self in a day. You are carving it patiently from the raw material of your daily life, one deliberate thought and one small action at a time. Epictetus, who knew the weight of building a life from nothing, offered the perfect starting point for this entire journey. He said that the beginning of philosophy is this: an awareness of your own weakness and inability when it comes to necessary things. This is not an admission of defeat, but the first step toward true strength. It is the moment you look honestly at your own reactions, your own fears, and your own desires, and decide to take responsibility for them. This self-awareness is the fertile ground where every other ritual takes root. Your mission now is not to attempt all 27 practices at once. That would be like trying to lift every weight in the gym on your first day. Choose one. Perhaps it is the 5-minute morning premeditation or the 3-question evening review. Maybe it is the simple act of imposing a single breath between a trigger and your reaction. Commit to that one ritual for a week and observe the subtle shifts in your inner landscape. Then and only then consider adding another. This is how you build an unshakable core, brick by quiet brick. We would love to hear which ritual you choose to begin with. Share your commitment in the comments below and let us know what you discover on your path. Your story could be the spark that inspires someone else's own quiet revolution. If you found this guidance valuable, subscribe for more practical wisdom to help you live a life of resilience and purpose.